we should all be attending to our personal health, and that is an important thing to do. But if you truly believe in these things and you are like actually activated, the thing that you must do is then activate in the systems to make it better. The thing I'm always frustrated by is people yelling about, processed foods, but like just shaming people and yelling at people for making what are on the surface perfectly logical and rational decisions given their bandwidth and resources. That is a very dumb use of your time and energy. We recently recorded an episode that'll come out in a couple weeks about the Make America Healthy Again movement that does look at how specifically that political context tends to frame things in terms of individual responsibility as shaming people for consuming foods that have red dye 5 in them or whatever, as opposed to what would it look like to change the system rather than shaming and moralizing individuals. What would it look like to actually hold the systems and the corporations accountable? And again, with things like raw milk, I think it's way less interesting to focus on people's individual decisions than to look at okay, how do these systems influence these decisions and why, and what narrative might that be replacing?
We also did a diet cults episode where we were talking about, how people identify with, they want to feel like this belonging or identity to a certain maybe diet and cult that we like to call it for extreme dietary thoughts and practices. And then another one is we're coming out with one about sugar as well. And I find a lot of these things that like the episode Zoe mentioned and the cults one, the sugar one, a lot of these are reasons why people choose not to fuel because they hear about a certain thing and think it's bad and then they just choose not to do it, or they want to belong to a certain group or sector of a diet culture and they identify with that. And so to Zoe's point, answering or asking, I guess, the questions as to why someone might not be feeling enough and understanding their story behind that, I think is really important. And I do that with a lot of my one-on-one athletes too, is understand that story because that's going to help in education, but also change if we're, trying to change something to be better.
I definitely agree with a lot of that, particularly the part around people wanting to be a part of something, right? We're seeing it so much in politics. We're seeing it in geopolitical crises and you got to pick a side kind of a thing. And I had this conversation with a friend who is Mormon and a devout religious man. And there's grounding that occurs when you're a part of something. And his comment was people just want to feel like they're a part of something. And so they latch on to these things that they feel like are communities or tribes that they can feel some sense of normalcy or purpose with. But it's, look at what's happening with TikTok. There's so much influence, outside influence and negative influence and intentionally bad influence that is stirring the pot and creating these types of, this tribal experience when people are just looking for something to latch onto. I want to go back to what Zoe was saying around the Make America Healthy Again campaign. And it's a shame that directionally an initiative like this is partisan. Because there's so much merit in, again, directionally what they're looking to do, which is make America healthy again. You can't argue with that, right? And the fact that one political party has latched onto it is a challenge, right?
Yeah, that was a big thing we wanted to, and this was tough because, I do have a background in reporting on food policy, but it was difficult because the kind of careful needle that we were trying to thread was that this idea is rooted in a lot of very valid concerns. And I think, especially speaking to the concerns of athletes, RFK has very intentionally capitalized on his identity as a fit person, as an N of one. I have abs, therefore I have all the answers, which sounds stupid, but how many times have we liked an Instagram post for more or less the same reasons? And so he has brought up a lot of valid concerns of our culture right now that haven't been meaningfully addressed by any other major political party. And unfortunately, I would posit that his answers are not they're not made in good faith. They are not in conversation with the lived experience of many people. They are not in conversation with the best available evidence. They are not in conversation with the existent systems. And therefore, I don't think we should take his solutions all that seriously. But in investigating the fact that it is so sticky for our culture, that this was sort of like a juggernaut campaign that attracted a lot of attention from like pretty politically agnostic. Like I have people from all sorts of political backgrounds in my life who were really into this idea. And that was fascinating to me because I'm also very interested in public health and health systems and feel very frustrated that those concerns are not always taken very seriously by the political establishment. However, I would definitely prefer that the answers were taken as seriously as the problems.
Where do we go from there?
I mean, I think that pointing out like it is very valid that we are concerned about these things and thinking about them. I think there should be more conversation at the national level about our food systems. I also think it's bananas that we aren't having more conversations about health and well-being. I know that we sort of live in a bubble of athletes and people who talk about this stuff nonstop, but I think it's heartbreaking that like more people don't have time and space and resources to think about and attend to these things because of failures of certain other systems. And I think it's unfortunate that someone who I would consider a bad faith grifter stepped into the space to take advantage of people's, I think, well-placed concerns. And so I think we acknowledge the concern and then say, actually, I expect better from an answer. It's not enough for you to just say that it's okay that I'm worried about this. I demand and require meaningful solutions for this as well.
And not just parroting like seed oils are bad and raw milk. Like, again, those are kind of like decoys to...
Yeah, we could ban seed oils tomorrow and it's not going to solve a lot of problems in our country.
But like seed oils, it's not even like, I was talking to my friend Diana, who is also a dietitian who specializes in diabetes, Diana Lacalzi, and she highlighted some research that like nutritionally, maybe Kylie, you can step in and help me from mincing words here.
You're fine. Well, I think it's more, it's more, I don't know exactly where you're going with your comment, which is why I was pausing for a minute. But from my perspective, it's more about the ratio of omega-6 versus omega-3 fatty acids that we're consuming, and overconsumption of omega-6 fatty acids might be a problem for our health, but that doesn't mean that seed oils are bad. That would be my answer.
And it was along those lines, but it was also like the alternative was worse, or like what was being consumed instead of seed oils or what it was replacing was potentially worse.
Oh, like tallow. Like RFK is very big into like tallow and
okay, if you're gonna join a diet cult, you gotta do better than tallow, man. Like there's so many taller options for like whack-ass diet cults. Tallow is not the best one, my dude.
It's tasty though.
Oh man, I got feedback. I'm out on tallow.
Maybe I'm biased because I got it from Black Belly here in Boulder, which is like the best butcher shop.
Tallow.
Yeah, bougie tallow. Okay, so if someone's listening, they're like, wow, I'm super frustrated, but I also totally agree with what they're saying about this from a health standpoint. Like, what does an individual do?
Vote better. I know that's like the most annoying thing to hear, but like, again, you can stop eating seed oils tomorrow. You can start drinking raw milk. We should all be attending to our personal health, and that is an important thing to do. But if you truly believe in these things and you are like actually activated, the thing that you must do is then activate in the systems to make it better. The thing I'm always frustrated by is people yelling about, processed foods, but like just shaming people and yelling at people for making what are on the surface perfectly logical and rational decisions given their bandwidth and resources. That is a very dumb use of your time and energy. That to me makes you think you do not actually care. You care more about performing your own identity and socio-cultural status than actually meaningfully making a change. So I would say, if you do in fact care and you want to move beyond Instagram activism, you must then accept that the meaningful action to take is ameliorating these systems, not yelling about beef tallow.